The small human shuttle moved slowly through the shining gates of the Zevran capital station. Outside the windows, Daniel saw thousands of lights spread across the city, each one glowing in the soft blue air of the giant station dome. Towering spires reached high, decorated with silver patterns that caught the light like frozen lightning. The city was not only beautiful, it felt alive, like it was watching him. Daniel was not here for sightseeing. He was here as a diplomat for the United Human Colonies, and this meeting could decide if there would be peace or another decade of silence between humans and the Zevran Empire. He knew the Zevrans respected strength, patience, and honor, but they did not trust humans. His task was to change that dot when the shuttle landed on the smooth white platform. He stepped out and was met by Tatal's Zevran guards. They were polished, armor that shimmered like liquid metal, and each carried a long staff that hummed with quiet energy. Without a word, they signaled for him to follow. Daniel walked between them. Feeling the weight of the moment, the platform led into a long marble corridor. The walls were carved with scenes from Zevran history, great battles in space, the building of their first cities, and the coronation of ancient rulers. Daniel's eyes followed the images as he walked. The Zevrans valued their past. That meant they would test him against their traditions. The corridor opened into the Grand Court. It was a vast circular hall, so large that Daniel's voice would echo if he spoke. Above, a dome made of crystal let in the soft blue glow of the station's artificial sun. Rows of alien nobles stood along the curved walls, their colorful robes marking their rank. Some of them leaned forward to get a better look at the human who had come to speak for his people. At the far end, raised above the floor, sat the throne of the Zevran Empire. On it was Princess Mira, the daughter of the Emperor, and the one chosen to lead these talks. She wore a flowing dress of silver and deep blue, her dark eyes studied Daniel the way a scientist might study an unknown material. Her face showed no smile, but her gaze was steady. Daniel approached the center of the court and bowed with a slow, respectful movement. The guards stopped at the edge of the circle, leaving him alone in the middle. Human envoy Daniel, a deep voice announced from the side. It belonged to the court herald, a tall figure with golden shoulder plates. You stand before the star court of the Zevran Empire. Speak with honor. Daniel lifted his head. I am honored to be here. I come not only to speak, but to listen. Our peoples have lived apart for too long. I believe we can build something better together. There was a soft murmur among the nobles. Some looked at him with interest, others with doubt. Princess Mira did not react. She leaned slightly forward, her hands resting on the arms of the throne. I have heard, she said at last, her voice clear and strong, that humans are quick to make promises and quicker to break them. You speak of peace. But words are easy. Why should we believe you? Daniel expected this question, because peace is not built by words alone. It is built by those willing to act for it, even when it is difficult. I came here to prove that humans are willing. Her eyes narrowed slightly. And how will you prove this? Before Daniel could answer, one of the council members stepped forward. He was an older Zevran with silver markings across his face. We have a tradition for such matters. The man said, the test of words, if the human passes. We will know if he is worthy to speak further. The court seemed to approve. A low sound of agreement passed through the nobles. Daniel looked toward the princess. I will take your test. Mira gave a single nod. Then it is decided. You will face the test of words at tomorrow's first light. 2 guards stepped forward to lead him out, but as Daniel turned, he caught the faintest flicker of something in the princess's eyes. It was not trust, but it was not cold suspicion either. It was curiosity. The walk back through the corridor felt longer than before. The images on the walls now seemed to watch him in silence. He knew the test of words would not be simple. It was said to challenge not only the mind, but the heart if he failed. The talks would end before they began. He reached his guest chambers, a spacious room with tall windows, overlooking the glowing city. The guards left without a word, the door sealing behind them. Daniel stood by the window, looking out at the alien skyline. Somewhere out there, the princess would be preparing for tomorrow, just as he was. He wondered if she expected him to fail. He wondered if she had already decided what kind of man he was. Daniel knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow, he would show her, the council, and the entire Zevran court that humans could be more than the stories they had heard. He would not let this chance slip away. The first light of the artificial sun shone through the high crystal dome of the Zevran palace. The air in the court was cool, filled with the faint scent of some alien flower that grew in the gardens outside. Daniel stood in the center of the grand hall again, this time surrounded by a circle of council members. The nobles were already in their places, waiting to see how the human would handle the challenge. The council elder who had spoken yesterday stepped forward, his silver facial markings caught the light, making them seem almost alive. Human envoy Daniel, he began. The test of words is a trial of mind and spirit. You must answer 3 questions from the council without anger, without falsehood, and without disrespect. Fail in any one, and the trial ends. Daniel nodded. I understand. The elder gave a slight smile that did not reach his eyes. Then, let us begin. The first counselor, a tall Zevran woman in green robes, took a step forward. Her voice was sharp. Why do humans take more than they give across the stars? I have seen human trade ships bring goods but demand more in return. Is this your nature? Daniel met her gaze. I will not deny that humans seek what they need, but it is not our nature to only take. We have shared medicine with worlds in need. We have brought food to colonies during famine, and we have helped rebuild after disasters. Trade can be fair if both sides choose it. I am here to choose fairness. The woman studied him for a moment. Before stepping back into the circle, the second counselor moved forward. His robe was black with gold edges, and his voice was low and steady. Humans have fought many wars. Some you started, some you finished. Tell me, if your people are so ready for peace, why do you still build weapons? Daniel took a slow breath, because peace is not guaranteed. We build weapons so that no one can force us into submission. But I believe the purpose of strength is not to start wars, but to end them. If we are strong enough, perhaps no war will come at all. That is the strength I wish to share, not the violence. A small murmur went through the court. The second counselor's expression did not change, but he stepped back. The third and final counselor stepped forward. This one wore no robe at all, only a simple tunic. His eyes were sharp as if trying to see through Daniel's very thoughts. What are you willing to lose to earn our trust? The hall grew silent. Even the sound of the distant fountains outside could be heard. Daniel thought of the answer carefully. Trust is not something bought with a single act. It is built over time. But if you ask what I am willing to lose, I will say this. I am willing to lose my safety, my comfort, even my life, if it means my people and yours can live without fear of each other. The last counselor tilted his head slightly, as if he did not expect such a reply. He returned to his place in the circle. The elder raised his staff. The council has heard your answers. We find no falsehood, no anger, and no disrespect. The human envoy passes the test of words. The nobles began to speak among themselves. Some looked impressed, others still wore guarded expressions. But the air in the court had changed. Daniel turned his eyes toward the throne. Princess Mira had been silent throughout the trial, her gaze never leaving him. Now she stood, the silver folds of her dress moving like water. She walked down the steps from the throne and stopped a few paces away from him. You spoke with calm, she said, and you did not hide from hard questions. But words alone will not decide this treaty. If you wish to speak for your people, you must also understand mine. Daniel nodded. Then teach me. Her lips curved slightly, though not into a full smile. We shall see how you feel after the next trial. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Another trial, yes, she said, turning to walk back toward her throne. The test of actions. If you wish to prove your words true, you will have the chance. Soon enough, the elder struck his staff once on the floor. This session is ended. The nobles began to leave, their robes swaying as they passed. The guards approached Daniel and led him from the hall. As they walked, one of the younger guards glanced at him with something like respect. Back in his chambers, Daniel sat by the window once more. The city below was alive with movement. airships gliding between towers, market lights blinking, and the hum of energy lines flowing along the streets. He thought about the questions he had been asked and the answers he had given. He knew. The princess was right. Words were important, but actions would decide everything. Far away in her private chambers, Mira also considered the human. She had expected him to stumble, to grow angry, or to try clever lies. Instead, he had spoken plainly. There was a strength in that plainness, and it made her curious. She had been taught that humans were dangerous in their ambition, but perhaps danger was not the same as cruelty. She decided she would watch him closely in the days to come. The test of actions would show if the bravery in his words lived in his heart as well. For Daniel, the thought was simple. If his actions could earn their trust, then no trial would be too great. Night in the Zevran capital station was not dark. The artificial sun dimmed, but the streets below still glowed with soft blue and white lights from Daniel's guest chambers. The city looked calm. He sat at a small table, reviewing notes on Zevran history and customs. He wanted to be ready for whatever test of actions the princess had planned. He had just set the tablet down when he noticed something unusual. Across the courtyard, a section of the palace wall flickered with faint orange sparks. The light was quick and small, like someone working on machinery in secret. Daniel frowned. The palace walls were powered by stable energy lines that should never spark unless they were damaged. Curiosity turned into concern. If the palace's energy systems failed, it could cause more than a blackout. On a station this size, power surges could be dangerous. He decided to take a closer look. Opening the door quietly, he stepped into the hallway. The guards posted at the far end were talking softly, and did not see him leave through the side stairway. The air grew cooler as he descended toward the lower level of the palace. The sound of the fountains above faded until all he could hear was the low hum of power lines in the walls. He followed the sound of faint metal clinks and came to a narrow maintenance corridor. At the far end, a shadow moved. Someone was crouched near a control panel, their hands working quickly with tools. Daniel could see long wires pulled out of the wall, glowing faintly with energy. "Hey," Daniel called out, stepping forward. The figure froze, then turned. It was a Zevran in dark clothing, face half covered by a mask. Without saying a word, the intruder dropped the tools and pressed something on the panel. A sharp, rising hum filled the corridor. Daniel's instincts took over. He ran forward, grabbed the masked figure by the arm, and tried to pull them away from the panel. The intruder twisted free and shoved him back before darting down another hallway. Daniel thought about chasing them but turned to the panel instead. The hum was growing louder, and a small warning light flashed red dot. It was an overload warning. If the power relay burned out, the palace's main defense grid could fail. Daniel quickly examined the mess of wires. His training in field repairs from his earlier days in the service came rushing back. He pulled the right wire free, then reconnected to others, stabilizing the flow. The hum faded, replaced by the steady thrum of normal power. Just as he exhaled in relief, a group of guards burst into the corridor. Their silver armor reflected the dim light, and their long staffs were aimed directly at him. "What is this?" the lead guard demanded. "Human, step away from the panel." Daniel raised his hands. "Someone was sabotaging your power system. They ran that way." The guards glanced at each other, but kept their staves pointed at him. "You will explain yourself to the court." They escorted him back upstairs, their grip firm on his arms. Daniel did not resist. He knew how it would look. A human found alone at the site of sabotage. With tools scattered on the floor. They brought him into a smaller chamber near the throne room. The air was tense. Moments later, Princess Mira entered, her steps quiet but her presence filling the room. Her gaze swept over the guards before settling on Daniel. "What happened?" she asked. The lead guard spoke first. "Your Highness, we found the human envoy at a damaged power relay. The system was minutes from overload." Mira turned to Daniel. "Is this true?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, but I wasn't the one who damaged it. I saw someone working on it from my chambers. I went to investigate. They triggered the overload and ran. I stayed to fix it." One of the guards frowned. "There is no proof of another person." Mira held up her hand to silence them. Her eyes stayed on Daniel. Why would you risk touching our systems? You could have called the guards. I acted because there wasn't time, Daniel replied. If the relay had blown, your defense grid could have gone down. Whoever planted that overload wanted to harm your people. I couldn't. Just watch. Mira studied him for a long moment. Her face gave away nothing, but something in her gaze seemed to search his words for weakness. The council will hear of this, she said finally. Until then, you will remain under watch. Daniel was escorted back to his chambers. 2 guards posted outside the door. He sat down at the table again, feeling the weight of the situation. He had acted to protect the palace, but without proof of the saboteur, suspicion would follow him. Elsewhere in the palace, Mira met privately with her advisors. Some insisted the human could not be trusted. Others said his quick action might have saved lives. Mira listened to them all, but she kept her own thoughts quiet. She had watched his face as he explained himself. She had seen no fear, only urgency still. She knew the coming days would reveal more. If he spoke the truth, then there was a hidden threat in her court, one that could end the talks before they began. That night, Daniel sat by the window, looking over the glowing city. He had passed the test of words, but now he was caught in something far more dangerous. Somewhere out there, the saboteur was still moving in the shadows, and he was sure they would not stop with one attempt. Morning came with the steady hum of the palace's energy lines restored. Yet the mood in the Zevran court was far from calm. The sabotage attempt had spread through the halls like fire. Servants whispered about it in corridors, and guards moved with sharper focus. When Daniel was escorted to the grand hall, he could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on him. The council sat in their high seats, their robes flowing like banners. Princess Mira was already on the throne, her posture upright and her face unreadable. The elder counselor stood. There was an attempt last night to destroy part of our power network. It would have disabled the defense grid and endangered many lives. A human was found at the scene. A murmur ran through the crowd. Daniel remained silent, keeping his eyes on the council. Mira raised her hand, and the room fell silent. The guards reported the human envoy's account, that he saw an intruder, attempted to stop them, and repaired the damage. We have no proof of this second figure, but the system logs confirm someone triggered an overload. The elder frowned. That proves sabotage, not his innocence. Daniel stepped forward. Then let me prove it another way. If someone inside your city wants to harm the palace, they will try again. Let me help find them. The court stirred at his words. Some nobles whispered in disbelief, others in disapproval. The elder counselor spoke sharply. Why would you place yourself in danger for a people not your own? Daniel's voice was steady. Because an enemy of peace is an enemy to both our peoples. If they destroy this meeting, they destroy any chance for the alliance we came here to build. I won't let that happen. Mira leaned slightly forward on her throne. Do you understand where this search will take you? The lower districts are not places outsiders visit. Even our own guards face danger there. Many who go and do not return. Daniel nodded. Then it is where I need to be. Her eyes held his for a moment, searching for any sign of hesitation. She saw none. Very well, she said at last. You will go with one of my guards. You will have 3 days. Return with proof, or return not at all. The hall grew quiet at her words. Daniel did not take them as a threat, but as the reality of what lay ahead. After the session, Daniel was brought to the palace armory. The room smelled faintly of metal and oil. On the racks were weapons shaped like long spears and compact energy pistols. The guard assigned to him stepped forward, a young Zevran named Luro, with light bronze skin and dark eyes that watched him with a mix of doubt and curiosity. I do not know why the princess trusts you enough for this, Luro said, handing him a light armor vest. But if she has ordered it, I will see you through. Daniel secured the armor and checked the small pistol they gave him. I'm not here to win your trust, he said. I'm here to find the ones who want to destroy what we're building. Luro's mouth curved in the faintest of smirks. Then follow me, human. They left the polished halls of the palace and entered the transport lifts. The ride down was long. the glass walls showing a view of the city shifting from bright towers to older, dimmer structures. When the doors opened, the air felt heavier. The lower districts were alive with sound. The call of vendors, the hiss of steam vents, and the distant echo of machinery. The streets here were narrower, lit by hanging lanterns instead of tower lights. People moved quickly, their eyes sliding past strangers without stopping. Daniel could feel the watchfulness in the air, as if everyone here was used to danger. Luro led him through winding alleys. The saboteurs will hide where the city's power lines are easiest to reach, he said. That means the tunnels under this district. They reached a metal gate at the side of a warehouse. Luro spoke briefly to the gatekeeper, who glanced at Daniel with suspicion before letting them pass. Inside, a set of stairs led down into the old transport tunnels. The air below was cooler and smelled faintly of dust and metal. The tunnels stretched ahead in long, dim lines, their walls covered with old cables and pipes. They moved quietly, the sound of their boots echoing softly after an hour of walking. They came to a junction where the lights flickered. Luro stopped, crouching near a panel. "This is fresh work," he whispered. "Someone's been here recently." Before Daniel could reply, a sharp sound came from the shadows. The clatter of metal hitting the floor. Figures emerged from the dark, faces hidden behind masks. They carried short, curved blades and moved quickly. The first attacker lunged at Luro. Daniel stepped to the side, drawing his pistol and firing a short burst into the floor near the attacker's feet. The flash of light made them hesitate, giving Luro time to parry with his staff. Another masked figure rushed at Daniel. He blocked with his arm, the impact rattling through his armor vest. He pushed back hard, striking with the butt of his pistol, and the attacker fell away. The fight was fast and close. Daniel found himself moving without thought, covering Luro's flank whenever an attacker slipped past. When one blade came dangerously close to Luro's side, Daniel stepped between them, taking the strike across his vest. The armor absorbed most of the blow, but the force still drove him back. Together, they forced the masked figures to retreat into the dark. The tunnel fell quiet again except for the sound of their breathing. Luro looked at him for a long moment. "You could have let them strike me," he said. Daniel shook his head. "I'm not here to let anyone fall. Not you, not the princess, not your people." Luro gave a slow nod. "Perhaps you are not like the humans I have heard about." They examined the area where the attackers had been working, hidden under a loose floor plate. They found small energy disruptors, the kind that could be linked to a power relay to cause a cascade failure. "This is the proof," Daniel said, lifting one of the devices carefully. "Let's get it to the princess." As they began the long walk back, Luro moved closer, his earlier doubt replaced with a quiet respect. High above, in the palace, Princess Mira stood at her window. She had sent them into danger knowing it might test the humans' true nature. She wondered now what they would return with, and whether Daniel's courage would match his words. The tunnel seemed darker on the way back. The overhead lights flickered in slow, uneven patterns, leaving moments where Daniel and Luro could only see each other's silhouettes. The air carried a faint metallic taste, and the sound of water, dripping somewhere in the distance, echoed like a slow clock. Daniel held the small energy disruptor carefully in one hand. It was their proof, the device that could show the council someone was trying to sabotage the palace. Losing it now would mean the mission had failed. Luro walked a few paces ahead, his staff ready. He glanced over his shoulder every so often. "Keep close," he said. "If those masked ones followed us in, they will not let us walk out so easily." Daniel nodded. "I'm close." They reached a narrow section of tunnel where the ceiling dipped low. The walls were lined with old, unused power conduits. The dust on the floor was broken by fresh footprints, not theirs. "They're here," Luro said quietly. The words had barely left his mouth when shadows moved in the flickering light. 3 masked figures stepped out from side passages, and Timur appeared behind them, cutting off the way back. Daniel shifted the disruptor into his pack and drew his pistol. "We're surrounded. Then we break through," Luro replied. The first attacker lunged toward Daniel. Blade aimed high. Daniel blocked with his forearm, feeling the sharp strike against his armor vest, and shoved the attacker back. Luro's staff spun in the air, striking one masked figure across the chest and forcing them into the wall. Another came at Daniel from the side. He ducked, using the tunnel wall for leverage, and kicked the attacker's leg. The figure stumbled, giving him a clear shot. A short burst from his pistol lit the tunnel, forcing the masked one to retreat. The space was tight, making every movement dangerous. One blade grazed Daniel's arm, cutting through his sleeve and drawing a thin line of blood. He ignored the sting and stepped forward, blocking another swing meant for Luro. "Stay on your feet," Luro called out, his voice echoing in the stone. "Quarter." Daniel gritted his teeth. "I'm not falling here." They fought in rhythm, Luro striking with his staff to drive the attackers back, Daniel covering the gaps with quick bursts from his pistol. The masked figures pressed hard, but after several sharp exchanges, they began to pull away into the side passages. When the last shadow disappeared into the darkness, the tunnel fell silent except for their breathing. Daniel leaned against the wall for a moment, feeling the weight of the fight settle in. Luro stepped closer, looking at the small cut on Daniel's arm. "You took that from me. You stepped in the way." Daniel shrugged. "Better me than you. If you go down, I'm walking blind in these tunnels." Luro's eyes narrowed slightly. "That is not the only reason. You fight to protect. I saw it yesterday. I saw it again now. I think the princess will see it too." They resumed walking. The path ahead wound through older sections where the air felt colder and the walls were rougher, as if they had been dug by hand long before the modern city was built. In one stretch, the lights failed entirely. They had to use the pale glow from Daniel's wrist lamp to guide their steps. At last, they reached the stairs leading to the surface. As they climbed, the sounds of the lower district returned. The hum of machinery, the shouts of vendors, and the distant hiss of steam vents. The contrast after the silence of the tunnels felt almost strange. They moved quickly through the crowded streets, keeping the disruptor hidden every so often. Daniel caught sight of a figure watching from a doorway or alley. He could not tell if they were simply curious or part of the group that had attacked them. By the time they reached the palace gates, the sun lamps above the dome were beginning to fade toward evening. The guards at the gate let them through after a short exchange with Luro. Inside the palace, they were taken directly to a small chamber near the throne room. Princess Mira arrived moments later, her silver blue dress flowing like water around her steps. She looked at the two of them, her gaze settling on Daniel last. "You return," she said. Daniel set the disruptor on the table between them. "We found this in the tunnels. It was hidden under a floor plate. The people who planted it attacked us twice. This device could disable your defenses if linked to the main power relays." Mira studied the disruptor for a long moment before looking back at him. "And yet you brought it here. You could have left when the fighting began." Daniel's voice was calm. "Leaving would have meant failing you. I'm not here to fail." Her eyes shifted to Luro. "And what is your account?" Luro stepped forward. "The human fought with me. He took a blow meant for me. If not for him, we might not have returned at all." The room was quiet for a moment. Mira's expression did not change much, but there was a faint change in her voice when she spoke again. "The council will see this evidence. Until then, you will remain in the palace. You have done what was asked of you, Daniel." As she turned to leave, she paused and looked back briefly. Perhaps words are not the only way to speak truth. The guards escorted Daniel and Luro back to their quarters. As they walked, Luro, "Lean closer. She sees it now," he said. "She sees the bravery you spoke of." Daniel looked toward the tall windows, where the lights of the city glimmered in the distance. Then maybe we're one step closer to peace, far above, in her private chambers. Mira placed the disruptor on her desk. She did not say it aloud, but for the first time, she began to believe the human diplomat might be more than just a voice in the court. The air inside the great council chamber of Avars Prime was heavy. Tension had grown over the past hours as the meeting between the humans and the Avarine leaders dragged on. Both sides wanted peace, yet both had fears that shadowed their decisions. Aaron stood in the center, his hands behind his back, his voice steady as he addressed the council. "War will destroy both our people," he said, meeting the eyes of each leader in turn. You think humans are a danger, but it is fear that will make us enemies. Let us face the true threat together instead of turning on each other." The alien princess, Leora, sat beside the high seat of her father, the Averine king. She had been silent for most of the talks, watching, listening, and measuring the weight of every word. Arn's courage was not only in what he said, but in the calm way he carried himself despite knowing he was surrounded by those who could order his death at any moment. But the council was not united. Some Averine nobles argued in sharp tones. "We cannot trust humans," one declared. "They have powerful weapons. They have ambitions that reach far beyond their world." Another elder spoke more softly. "Perhaps, but this man has shown no deception. His people's actions here have been measured, not reckless." The debate grew heated. Outside, the weather of Avarice Prime had turned wild. Storms were sweeping across the capital, and lightning flashed beyond the tall glass walls of the chamber. The sound of the wind echoed faintly through the room. Leora glanced at Aaron. His uniform was still marked by small tears and dust from the last mission when he had rescued her, and others from the attack on the outpost. His body bore the memory of that danger, but he showed no sign of retreat. His voice rose again. "We came here to prove that humans value life, all life," he said. "We crossed the stars not to conquer, but to stand against those who would destroy peace. The true enemy is still out there, watching and waiting for us to destroy each other." Some of the council members quieted. The storm outside seemed to pound in rhythm with his words. Suddenly, the doors of the chamber burst open. A young Averine guard rushed in, his face pale. "Your Highness," he called to the king. "The outer defense towers have been breached. Unknown ships are descending. It is the same enemy that struck the outpost." The council erupted into chaos. Orders were shouted, messengers ran, and security officers hurried toward the exits. Aaron stepped toward the king. "Let me help. My crew is ready. We can coordinate with your forces to hold them back." The king hesitated. His advisors whispered warnings in his ear, urging him not to hand any control to humans. But Leora stood and spoke with a firmness that made even the elders turn to her. "Father, I have seen this man face death for us. If we do not trust now, we may not live to regret it." The king studied his daughter for a long moment, then looked at Aaron. "Very well, you will lead alongside my generals, but fail us, and this will be your last day among the living." Aaron nodded without fear. "Then I will not fail." Within minutes, the chamber emptied. The sound of the storm mixed with the rising roar of defense craft engines. Aaron moved quickly through the corridors, speaking into his comm to his crew aboard the human vessel Resolute. His second officer confirmed that the ship was armed and ready. Leora walked beside him, her long cloak sweeping behind her. "You do not have to do this," she said quietly. "This is not your war." Aaron glanced at her as they stepped into the open air where the wind whipped against them. "If I walk away, it becomes everyone's war. That is how these things begin. I won't let that happen." Leora felt the storm's rain sting her face, but in her chest there was a different heat. She had grown up among warriors, yet no one had ever spoken of duty with such clear resolve. The sky above was alive with flashes of battle as the first enemy ships broke through the clouds. The city's defense towers fired back, beams of bright energy cutting across the darkness. Aaron and Leora reached the landing platform where a human shuttle awaited. He turned to her. "Stay with your father, if this goes badly," but she shook her head. "I will not hide while others fight for my people. I will be on the command deck." Aaron paused, then gave a short nod. "Then stay close." They boarded the shuttle. Lifting off into the chaos, the rain blurred the lights below, and the city shrank as they climbed toward the heart of the battle. On the horizon, the enemy fleet emerged, dark, angular ships that seemed to drink the light around them. Leora's hands clenched at her sides. She had seen those ships before, in the worst nightmares of her childhood. Aaron stood at the front, eyes locked on the incoming enemy. "Open a channel to the Averine flagship," he ordered. "Tell them to target the lead vessel's engine cluster. If we cut its drive, the rest will be easier to take down." The first blast shook the shuttle, but Aaron didn't flinch. He began issuing orders to both human and Avarine forces, moving them in unison like pieces in a single game. Slowly, the enemy advance began to falter. Leora realized something then. This was not just bravery. This was leadership, and in that storm, above a world that was not his own, Aaron was willing to risk everything for peace. The Grand Hall of the Alliance Council was brighter than usual. Golden light from the high windows fell across the polished floor, reflecting in the eyes of every representative present. The air was full of whispers, a mix of fear, hope, and curiosity. It had been 3 weeks since the battle at Varine Gate, and the outcome had left the galaxy talking about one name, Daniel, the human diplomat who stood against impossible odds. Princess Rinya entered first, wearing a ceremonial robe of silver and blue. Her steps were calm, but inside, her heart was restless. This was the day the Council would decide if Earth would be granted full membership in the Galactic Alliance. For centuries, her people had viewed humans as young, reckless, and unpredictable. Now, after seeing Daniel's bravery, she knew they were also capable of loyalty, sacrifice, and courage that rivaled the oldest civilizations. Daniel walked in behind her, his simple black uniform a contrast to the rich colors around him. He looked tired, but there was a spark in his eyes. The hall quieted as they reached the center platform. High Chancellor Roran, an elder from the Verdari race, leaned forward. Daniel of Earth, Princess Rinya of Lurin, you have both been called here to speak before the Council. The galaxy knows of your actions. The question is, should Earth be trusted with a seat among us? Daniel took a breath. His voice was steady. I came here as a diplomat. I fought when I had to, not because I wanted war. I've seen how fear can blind us, but I've also seen how trust can save us. My people are far from perfect, but we are willing to stand beside our friends, even when the cost is high. We didn't fight at Varine Gate for power. We fought because it was the right thing to do. Rinya stepped forward. I was raised to believe humans were dangerous, that they would bring chaos wherever they went. But Daniel proved me wrong. When the enemy fleet closed in, he didn't think of himself. He thought of others. He fought for my people when he had no reason to. Without him, I would not be standing here. Without him, many worlds would be ashes now. There was a long silence. Several council members exchanged glances. Some nodded, others frowned. The debate began. Ambassador Zekran from the Dravik system spoke first. Humans are still untested. This could be a mistake. A representative from the Solari homeworld countered. And yet they saved us when others hesitated. Perhaps this is exactly the kind of courage the Alliance needs. The discussion went on for hours. Daniel stood quietly, letting the words pass over him. Rinya stayed by his side, not speaking unless necessary. She had already made her choice. Whatever the Council decided, she would not abandon Earth. Finally, Chancellor Roran raised his hand. The decision will be made now. All in favor of granting Earth full membership, raise your emblem. One by one, hands lifted. At first, only a few, then more, then almost all. The chamber filled with light as the vote passed. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, relief flooding through him. Rinya allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy had just changed forever. After the session ended, they walked together into the quiet courtyard outside. The war memorial stood there, newly engraved with the names of those who had fallen at Varine Gate. Humans, Lurin, and many others. Daniel placed his hand on the cold stone. We did it, he said softly. We did, Rinya agreed. But it was not just the battle that changed the Council's mind. It was your heart. Daniel looked at her, a little embarrassed. I didn't do it alone. No, she said, her voice warm. And you never will again. That is the promise of the Alliance. They stood there for a while, the stars beginning to appear above them in the distance. Ships from a dozen worlds moved together through the night sky. For the first time in many years, the galaxy felt just a little safer. And for Daniel and Rinya, this was only the beginning of their story. The stars waited. And so did the future.